What is going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Heath Mulligan, joined as always by the man behind the controls, the man with the plan, Nick McDaniel. Nick, how are you today, my brother?
Dude, doing really good. Feeling way better than I have been in the last couple of weeks. So, that's a huge positive. But busy today. A lot going
Y-
on today.
yes. And if you want to stay on top of all of the things going on, you need to go to patreon.com/tap.pod. You can become a member. You get all the shows early, and you get access to some special content. Nick, right after this, you got some special content coming up.
Yeah, man, we do. Let's get it all through this, and then we'll kind of talk because it's going to be a long conversation. I think about what we've got coming up.
So don't forget, fans, also YouTube, you got to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell, get those notifications. Also, hey, if you're an audio person, we got you covered. Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere you can listen to an audio podcast, you can hear all the great stuff from the Tapped Out Podcast Network. But if you're a member, you're going to get this show early, and you're also getting a conversation early that Nick's having today. Pretty excited about. Nick, tell him what's coming up.
So we put it out there. We were going to do like just a standard interview with QT Marshall, AEW, Nightmare Factory, etc. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. And we put it out there about sending in questions. We got so many questions. I just kind of hit QT up and was like, "Hey, do you just want to turn this into like an Ask QT anything?" I mean, we've got a pretty good number of questions, and I think that's what we're going to convert it to. And we'll obviously, based on the questions I have in the pool, it's going to cover probably everything we would have had a conversation about anyway. But it was kind of cool to have just, hey, lay out the questions. We're just going to rattle through them. A lot of cool stuff. And look, we even, by the way, this past week, we do we want to tell everybody, like, we tried to make your life really easy now. We basically scrapped the website. I was like, the website's gone, but now tappedoutpod.com, that's how you find our YouTube channel.
Yes.
So don't worry about going to YouTube and searching, and nope, just enter in tappedoutpod.com and it'll take you straight to our YouTube channel. You can sign up, you can like the page, subscribe to the channel, become a member, all that stuff simply by going to tappedoutpod.com. So I don't think I can make it much easier than that.
And listen, the true fans, the true believers, have already got all this stuff bookmarked so they can find all the stuff from the Tapped Out Pod that you're not getting anywhere else. So, hey, it's a great time to become a member. Again, you're going to get all the stuff early. And we're constantly brainstorming stuff for Patreon, stuff for members. And so once we get in a rhythm, my job has changed a little bit. I know Nick's been sick. Once we get in a rhythm, we're going to be putting out consistent, good, different content that you're not going to get anywhere else. And so we encourage you to do that. So let's jump into this week's Indy Rewind and look back over the shows from the last couple of days, including the weekend. Some shows we did not have results for. Phoenix Wrestling Experience ran Thursday night. Again, their big news over the last couple of weeks has been the announcement of the Phoenix Wrestling Dojo, where the main coach is going to be Anthony Henry. I don't know that we had I think we announced the school last week, but it had not been announced that Anthony Henry was the primary trainer. Nick, you'd be crazy not to
Yeah.
learn from somebody who's been signed.
And here's the thing, like, obviously we're having QT on. We're massive fans of the Nightmare Factory, all the above. But it's funny that, I've talked to people and I said, there's nothing wrong with go to the Nightmare Factory, go through their program, go to the Phoenix Wrestling Experience Dojo, go through the program, go to these different facilities and learn, because there's going to be something a little bit different that you can learn from each and every one of those schools. That's just my take and my opinion. Take it for what it is. But that's just my personal take. And then when you're working promotions, work different types of promotions as well. And I think that's the experience that you can build up by doing different schools and stuff. And last week we did announce the dojo. You had kind of known that you just couldn't say the name until they
Right.
put it out there. So it was kind of cool that, like they finally got it out there and like, hey, Anthony Henry. So that's a big deal for them, and it's a good get. And I'm assuming, obviously, if he's gonna be training at the dojo, we're probably gonna start seeing him potentially on more cards as well.
That's right. Phoenix has released highlights of his match with Sean Legacy, and you got to imagine Sean Legacy has been learning a lot from Anthony Henry, and that's just going to take him to a different level. So Phoenix Wrestling Experience, they've been around about a year. We were talking about it before the show. It's been almost a year, right around a year since they made their announcement, and they came out of the gate hot 12 months ago, and they have not let off the gas. And kudos to them. That's hard to do in independent wrestling.
Yeah, glad to see them, and they're making the partnerships with Wrestle America, coming over and doing a lot of this. Like that's just what this show was in Macon, and they're off to a hot start, and they're hanging in there.
Yeah. Friday night, Classic City Wrestling in Georgia. We do know Owen Knight continues his reign. 400, and I think I don't know how many days it is.
It's got to be
450
like 480 plus. Yeah, he's got to be up there now.
Owen Knight. If I were Owen Knight, my theme for 2024 would be put some respect on my name. Hey, don't forget about me. But he continues to carry not only that title, but also to carry a company that has also had a very consistent year. They've done well. Classic City Wrestling is going to be back in Athens on September 6th, so you want to check them out. Friday night also, they're in Tyrone, Georgia, their home venue. Action Wrestling put on a great show. You can catch them and Classic City on IWTV. Let's talk about this. Buff and Fluff, Cody Fluffman and Sean Legacy defeated Eric Royal and BK Westbrook. I have to think that Buff and Fluff have done enough now to earn a shot at the good hand, the Action Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, I mean, look, they of course were on the card. They picked up a win as well, and it clearly that's where I say that we think clearly that's where we have to be heading, is those two on a collision course for those tag titles. And it's cool, by the way. Hey, why are you excited? BK Westbrook. I liked him. I saw him first time I saw him in person was at Disruptor, and I really like him. And we can obviously when we look later in the card, probably it was a double package, but it was cool to see them on the card. Period. But yeah, I think Buff and Fluff, and you'd be hard pressed to say that you couldn't have better tag champions right now than that team.
Yes. Kevin Ryan and Shug D, as far as I know, multiple time tag team champions there in Action. So it's not going to be an easy task for Buff and Fluff, but Buff and Fluff, maybe the hottest team in Georgia that haven't. Well, they're the viral champions,
yeah.
So they're looking to add some gold down the road. So when that match is announced, whether I'm there or watching the live stream, that is one I will circle and count me hooked. Some other great matches on this card. Colby Carino of the NWA defeated Aaron Wade, who's become a staple there at Action Wrestling. And then in the main event, Bobby Flacco, returning to Action Wrestling, defeated former champion Alex Kane. And in doing so, Bobby Flacco has earned a title shot at the one called Manders. Bobby Flacco is one of those guys, has been an Action Wrestling staple since day one. And so to see him earn that shot against Manders, that's going to be a tough hill to climb for young Bobby Flacco.
It will be, but Bobby Flacco could possibly be the epitome of an underdog, like working his way through a promotion.
Right.
And he has slowly, steadily climbed the Action ladder. Clearly has paid his dues and earned this spot. By the way, pause. Tremendous YouTube follow. If you don't, his travel blog that he does is just amazing. This guys talk about like, oh, I travel a lot. No, Bobby Flacco travels the world, not the country, the
Yeah.
world to wrestle, and it is a very interesting just path to follow. Unpause. But he clearly, like I said, those people believed in him. At the end of the match, they were all in, on Bobby Flacco, and they were just so invested that it's cool to see his ascension. And like, hey, could he be? Could be his time. You never know. I mean, I think because here's the thing, he could be the action champion. He could defend that title in all these countries he's traveling to. He'd be a great face of, to actually say my title's defended across the globe and not just, in the United States.
Is there lots of great promotions in Georgia? Let's be very clear about that. Action seems to do one of the better jobs of building up people for their title shots. Like when somebody gets a title shot in Action, you're like, oh yeah, of course that guy's getting a title shot. Or it's someone new, and that's how they're getting that person over immediately.
Yeah.
They're putting them in there with Manders or whoever the champion is. So again, Action, uh, they're I when I say they're on cruise control, I don't mean that in a bad way at all. They've just reached that point to where, man, they just have the talent. They got everything down pat. So kudos to Action for another great show, and they built such a great fan base there. Another great fan base that maybe doesn't get a lot of attention is the Squared Circle Action crowd there in Royston, Georgia. They show up every Friday night, and this past Friday night, lots of different things, going on. They had announced that Heath Slater's going to be there September 6th for their anniversary show. And Xander Seabolt had earned a title shot, but he's not going to be there for September 6th for the anniversary show. So they had to figure out who's going to get this title shot. And so you had Xander Seabolt taking on Chop Top. You had lots of interference. Tower, the champion, came in there. Cal Phillips got involved. So then you had a tag team match made where Xander Seabolt, Kyle Phillips teamed up against Tower and Chop Top. Seabolt and Phillips won, and Xander Seabolt has chosen Heath Slater to challenge Tower. That's a first-time matchup at the anniversary show, at the birthday show on September 6th. That is certainly a match you're not going to get anywhere else in Georgia. Heath Slater versus Tower.
Yeah, it's a great way to set up where your guy's coming in, so you can put him against, like, the explanation other than just, well, he's a superstar, so we're going to put him against our top guy. No, there's a story how we got there. By the way, really cool to hear. Jonathan Feltner's back.
Yes.
He'd missed some time from family reasons, whatever. Glad to see he's back in his position. And look, it's SCA. They tick, 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 tick every Friday. They're rolling, doing their thing, and it's really cool to see them now because, hey, they're bringing in Heath Slater, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good to see that. That's a swing. That's a really good swing, and let's see how that plays out for them, right? Because we like it when they take a little bit of chances, and let's see what happens for them.
Yeah, I also want to throw. Didn't mean to overlook this match. Hunter James in what was called the match of the night beat Lucas Da Silva in a match. I mentioned Hunter James because his name's going to come up a little bit more in this episode, maybe against our better judgment. I don't know. So again, Friday night. Again, if you are in Georgia, every Friday night there's a wrestling show. Every Friday night, consistently. Maybe there's a holiday that they don't have a show, but every Friday night you can see some wrestling there in Royston. Saturday night, Southern Fried Championship Wrestling was back in Monroe, Georgia, and this was, they're just coming off a shindig and reshuffling and reloading, and this was, you were there, a tremendous card. A young man we mentioned a lot last week was Zach Buchanan, who came in to a tremendous response and got a big win over Big Rob Adonis.
Yeah, look, there was a look. It built with Bobby Moore versus Te'o into this. Then Donna's involved, and then Zach comes out. By the way, tremendous rebound. Everybody, because it's funny. They ran, against SummerSlam
Yes.
at the last show. Crowd was down a little bit. You could go doom and gloom. That's not what they do at Southern Fried. They just put their nose to the ground. They just boom, 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 push through. And this show, great crowd. It was a good sized crowd. They were a hot crowd. And Zach Buchanan, there's something. How do you say this? The reaction he gets, it's a little bit higher pitched.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different level octave because the ladies
Yeah.
love Zach Buchanan for a million reasons, right? That you can probably guess what they are. But the kid's a star, and I think I probably will become one of these broken record statements where we always say, if you see him on a Southern Fried card, if you see him on a bullpen card, if you see him on wherever, go ahead and buy your ticket. Go see him now, because probably in a year he ain't going to be here. It's probably sooner than that, by the way. I'm being conservative and saying he probably won't be here in a year. So every chance you can, go check him out. So
We maybe it was you and Myron that talked about this. Somebody talked about this on a podcast. When you have somebody like Zach Buchanan that the WWE sees like unmissable talent, like just he's a can't miss prospect. They are going to sign him early
yeah,
before he either gets an injury wrestling some untrained person on the indies, or he learns a lot of bad habits, or God forbid gets caught up with the wrong crowd in independent wrestling. They're going to sign him. They're going to get him to
yeah.
Orlando. They're going to teach him their way of doing things, and that's just really rare that you don't quote unquote have to pay your dues because you are just that hot of a prospect.
So it's funny. There was I was listening to a podcast, and then I had a conversation with somebody at Southern Fried, and we were talking about old timers sometimes begrudgingly are like, hey, well, guys don't have to pay their dues anymore. They don't have to do that, whatever. And this person who's super well respected, I don't want to say who it was, um, for whatever reason. And he's just kind of like, so what's wrong with that? Like, we paid our dues, we paved the way. So these guys, they're paying their dues just a different way. Like,
Yes.
WWE, like you said, they're gonna grab Zach before he learns a bunch of bad habits, and they're gonna see him as a piece of clay that they can mold into their vision of what they see as him as a WWE superstar, and that's what they're gonna do. And yeah, he's going to get to go down there and train, and they're going to feed him the right way. They're going to make sure he's training the right way. He's getting to work in a different different style ring. Like, I heard this person told me, like, did you know that WWE has a ring where the mat's just basically a big cushion,
Mm.
so they can do flips off the top, they can do everything off the rope, whatever, and they're not going to get hurt because it's like basically it's like a foam pit.
Right. Right.
So when so these high flyers are like, hey, don't worry about trying it. Go in there and do it. You're just gonna you'll go right into the ball pit, essentially, like the foam pit. But that's what they're gonna do. Like, and a guy like Zach's the guy who does that's he's the epitome of somebody who gets that.
And if you don't think that doing, and I've seen some of the when they put them through the paces of like the 500 up downs and the 500 squats and run. I mean, it's just a different version of paying your dues. It's not traveling in a car crammed in from town to town, but it's getting there on time every day and eating what they feed you and running through those drills. It's a different kind, but it's still paying the dues. And
Yeah.
um yeah, I think it's a good thing. One of the other developments, there have been some controversy with that classics title with Najicism and Billy Buck, and Bill Behrens came out and announced that starting September the 7th, we're going to see a best of three matches for that classic title. The question I wanted to ask you, when we think of Billy Buck, we typically don't think of a technical wrestler. And I know Najicism, reigning technical wrestler of the year, he's really tried to embrace some heelishness, but almost try to outgrow that technical label. But I'm very interested for this series, because you're going to see that contrast in styles. But really, man, you want to talk about two guys, Georgia veterans, pushing themselves to a next level. I'd love to get your take on this best of three series.
Billy Buck to me is probably one of the most underrated wrestlers around. You know, he is beloved at Anarchy, Southern Fry, you know, that good old Southern wrestling crowd. They love him.
Yes.
And as far as technical wrestling, I think he's probably underrated as well. Like you're just saying, like, hey, I don't think of him as that way. Well, I mean, I've seen enough of him over the past 8 years. Yeah, guy, he's pretty good. And I think, like I said, he is underrated, I believe. So I think Naja is, like you said, is embracing more of the character of this hoochie daddy gimmick, and so it's kind of I want to see him wrestle more like that.
Right.
Maybe that's so be more of, if you're going that route, wrestle that. Don't be technical wrestler. Be heel, kind of thing. This, I don't know that I'm a big fan of the best of 3, the best of 5, the best of 7s, because either it's going to be stretch over 3 shows, which is 6 weeks minimum.
Mm-hmm.
For them, or it's going to be, because they're not going to do it at different promotions. Like I know he did one with him and Owen, I think, that did one that it was across like multiple promotions,
right?
Type of thing. So this is going to be at Southern Fried. So this is going to be probably a minimum of 6 weeks. This will stretch out, probably over the time. Me personally, I would rather see. I'm just an old school guy. It is what it is. Doesn't change anything. I'm sure that. Here's the thing: the matches are going to be great. I don't doubt they're going to be good. Give me 2 out of 3 falls in one night, or something like that to push them or something. But yeah, I think that again with the players involved, they're gonna do great. I'm not worried about it.
One of the best of 7 series I saw was, and they did a documentary about it called 7 Levels of Hate. It was Colt Cabana and Adam Pearce for the NWA title, and this actually was what led to when the NWA kind of fell apart, leading up to being purchased by Billy Corgan. But what I really liked about that best of 7 was every match had a different stipulation.
Yeah,
like they had an I Quit match, and so that's, if you're doing a series, when you can add that layer to it, it does add something. But I mean, these guys, they're going to tear the house down 3 times, so that'll be nice. We finally saw, we mentioned this, we finally saw those tag team titles defended by the approved Nick Kalen and Adrian Hawkins. Got a little bit of a controversial win over Happy Madness, and they're not going to get. I mean, they went from kind of not defending to, after Judias and Todd Sexton got a win over Lev and Joey Hyder, now it's going to be Judias and Todd Sexton taking on the approved for the tag title September 7th. Holy cow.
Yeah, back to back. They're going to have, 2 of the top, because it was so funny, just off the top of his head, Judias names them Technical Destruction, which was kind of funny. And but so it's going to be, I think, look, I understand the approved will say a win's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Brass knucks, pulling the tights, feet on the ropes, none of that doesn't matter. Win's a win. By the way, at the end of the day, they're right, because they're still the tag team champion. So I guess that's hard to argue against. Judias and Todd Sexton is going to be another massive hill to climb, because there's just so much history tied up in those 4 individuals.
Yeah.
That they know each other, I mean, like, probably better than anybody. So that match will be tremendous, just from the sheer, like, knowledge of each other and their styles. So
should be interesting. We did find out one of the big mysteries of the last couple of weeks, month, in Georgia wrestling was who attacked CT Keys. David Manders came out and demanded to know, because they wanted to get that championship title back. And who was it but Jeter, making his return to Southern Fried Championship Wrestling?
I never saw it coming. I mean, honestly, look, I won't even lie to you. I just naturally assumed it was probably Nick Halen or somebody like that. I would have never called Jeter, and it's, to catch me completely off guard with a move like that was just like, wow. I have had the, look, good, bad, or indifferent. Like, I don't necessarily have to agree with his tactics or any of that. Doesn't matter. Jeter's mind for wrestling is tremendous. I've had a pleasure of talking to him multiple times and just kind of picking his brain, and he gets it. The thing is, sometimes the monsters don't feel, like in the legends, as you might call them, like they aren't appreciated. Sometimes you got to remind everybody who the king of the mountain is. And I think that's what Jeter is trying to do, just to remind Georgia, I can do this because I can, and ain't nobody going to stop me. Good luck, CT, being a guy who's going to try to slay that monster.
Yeah, so if they face off on September the 7th, you've now got Billy Buck and Najasism Classics title. You got the tag title match. You got the heavyweight title match. That's going to be a loaded show September 7th. But that wasn't all Saturday night in what was simply called a dog fight. No ropes. Hunter James and Xavier Reyes meeting for what ended up being or appeared to be the final time. Talk about the brutality of this match.
So, as you probably know, we had this conversation last week. This was like, me and you always have the, the Eric Bischoff better than, less than, or different than. This match intrigued me just because I'm like, hey, it's going to be something different that I we don't see it often. And I just kind of made a point, like, this is the match that kind of sucked me in, right, to come check this card out. Tremendous. Does the result matter at in one form or fashion at this point? Because as we saw at the end of the match, we'll come back to the match itself. Xavier Reyes hangs it up after this match. He's been doing it for about 8 years, I believe. Just family and all these things or whatever. He left his boots in the ring. His wife came out. His family came out, and kind of So kudos to the guy getting to go out. By the way, this is kind of one of those. There's a difficult thing with this podcast, and we say this often, where sometimes it's like, hey, we've got the curtain pulled. Sometimes we pull it back. We kind of go in and out. But kudos for him to getting to go out his way on his terms. Yeah. Yes. Getting essentially to have the match he wanted with the opponent he wanted. Essentially kind of. Yes. So we'll pull the curtain back again now. The things that they did because it's funny that you could see there's no ropes. Like, you can't go running and bouncing off the ropes, and you can't sling your opponent into the corner, and all of that's off the table. Literally makes you think, like, you have to wrestle completely different. But for them, then, Hunter James he injected a ladder so he had something he could jump off of. They're putting tables in there, and they're going through tables and etc. They fought around the entire building. Literally went out of the ring and literally fought all the way around. Hunter James busted open. He's bleeding, So it's kind of like you're thinking, oh, it was just a brawl. No, like, they did a phenomenal job of telling the story of, and of course, at the end of the day, Hunter James is going to do what Hunter James does. He's going to have an ace up his sleeve, and Tyler Stevens, The Wall, Deity come out, interject themselves in and help him pick up a win. So I guess he's going to have the argument, right? I retired Xavier Reyes. I put an end to him. He's gone. Blah, I picked up a win. Yes, you could make that argument. However, there'll always be the asterisk by that about, he didn't do it by himself.
Right.
Which at times can be disappointing when we talk about how talented he is, but I guess you're going to make sure you're going to win this kind of a match. So, but they did a tremendous job. I can't, put it over enough. And I've got some footage. I might put it on Patreon. Some video that I might want to put on there. Some spots that were just insane. So maybe I'll put those on our Patreon page.
Make sure you can check out the entire Southern Fried Show. Typically goes up on their YouTube page a few days after the show. That is absolutely one I'm going to check out just to see how they pulled off that phenomenal match. So Southern Fried returns to Monroe, Georgia, September the 7th. That's going to be a full weekend. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling was in Athens, Georgia on Saturday night. Want to mention a few of the matches. Luke Sampson defended the Nightmare Factory heavyweight title over Don Furio. Don Furio, a young man. You talked about this earlier. Don Furio trained at the Palmetto Wrestling Academy. He actually was in the graduating class with Fluffman. Fluffman, it was Fluffman, Aaron Berry, uh, dad named Paul, Don Furio, and then oh man, I can't female referee who does a lot in the Carolinas. That was the five of that graduating class, and Don Furio went from there. He also trained with Seth Rollins. It's clear he's doing some stuff with the Nightmare Factory. This is a young man that has taken his training very seriously. He was down at the Rumble Jack. He's built those relationships. He's trying to get as much experience as possible. He's won championships here in the Carolinas. And so to see him branching out now beyond the Carolinas and getting this opportunity, that's a pretty big deal for this young man.
Yeah, and it's what we talked about earlier about learning from multiple training facilities to actually learn little bitty different things that if you could put all those pieces together can set you apart from, somebody who's like, oh, I learned from this guy and that's it.
Yes. One match, I hope there's video of this. Vari Morales defeated the Warden. I want to see footage of this match. That is, you want to talk about a contrast in styles, a contrast in sizes. We talk about Vari Morales. You can put him in there with anybody, but I also have to believe that that was a big test for Warden
Yeah.
as well. But that's one I would have wanted to see. This show, unfortunately, cut short by a pretty vicious storm. But I hear fans were in good spirits. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling returns to Cali and Tito's on Thursday, September the 12th. So go get you some good food, see some good wrestling, and you never know who's going to be at the Turnbuckle
That's the
show.
drawback, those outside shows, right? Because it was a Southern Brewing show. They moved over to Cali and Tito's, last minute change of venue.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, it's the, by the way, follow them on, this is a promotion we always talk about. You have to follow them on social media. Specifically, I would tell you to follow them on Facebook because their events,
Right.
they're running so many. Like I know they're going to be in Buford August the 30th prior to the, being back there. So that's why I'm saying, like, you got to follow them because we talked about it, whether 2, 3 shows a month, 4 shows a month, sometimes 5 shows is what their schedule looks like. So absolutely a promotion you do have to follow on social media to keep up with their calendar.
Yes. Premier All Star Wrestling was in Buchanan, Georgia, Saturday night. Don't have a lot of results from there, but there were one we've talked about that they've greatly improved and drawing good crowds, and so want to send them support. Forever Pro Wrestling was in Chattanooga over the weekend, and they're getting ready to run their outside of Atlanta. Listen, Atlanta Wrestling is heating up in that area. You got the return of Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment, Forever Pro, Classic City, lots of different people running in that area. So again, if you're within an hour and a half, 2 hours of Atlanta, get to some independent wrestling. That's what it's all about. Let's jump into this week's hot hand, and let's look at the promotions and people who are really on a roll. Let's start off with Bullpen Pro Wrestling. 3 consecutive shows now, maybe more, of over 400 people for a promotion that just started this year from scratch. They could not have gotten off to a better start.
2 of the 3, were over 500. I was just trying to be, because, statistically correct. The one was in the
Yes.
400s. Then they were like 4, or there was like 525. It was like 570. I mean, it just kept growing and growing and growing. I had the pleasure of talking with Bull Buchanan this weekend, and they're just excited about how hot they are and how much on a roll they are. The crowds are, getting bigger and bigger. And it's cool to hear even them go like, hey, we need to change this and get better. Because here's the thing. You could be a promotion. If you were drawing this, you could sit back and be, fat and happy and be like, hey, we're doing it all right, man. We're on a roll. They can't nobody stop us. But no, to sit there and go like, nah, we need to do this and we can get better here. We can get better there. That's what excites me. And, we have got to. And I said, I think they're next September 14th, I think. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that's the next time. I'm like, man, we might have to make a haul down there. They're back at the Alabama school again. And I was like, it's only a couple hours away. I mean, we've done that some other shows, so why not put Bullpen? Because I don't know that anybody's hotter than them right now.
Right. And again, it's not the same old, same old. They're mixing some of the new guys, some of the older Georgia talent, and then there's going to be people there that are legends. Bull Buchanan using a lot of his connections to put on some great cards. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, they've got the hot hand. We just mentioned it. They are adding shows left and right. They could decide right now to add a show and run tonight somewhere. That's just they are. I don't. It feels like Turnbuckle. They are operating off a different set of rules because it's like they have their own stuff. They can go where they want. They can do what they want, and that's what they've been doing. And they run more shows in a month than some run in a whole year.
And here's the crazy thing is, go check out their pictures on their social media. Did you notice they actually have a custom ring skirt for Callie and Tito's now? It's actually like the trees and all this kind of stuff. And there's been talk of, hey, maybe we need one of these for every venue we run regularly.
Wow.
I mean, who's doing that, right? Who's doing custom ring skirts for different venues that they're running? And like you said, it's just with the tools they have, whether it's young kids at the school at the Nightmare Factory, whether it's, every connection QT Marshall has in his, Rolodex. I don't know if you saw, by the way, Satnam Singh, who's popped up at several of their shows this past weekend, became a AAA tag team champion.
Yes.
With the artist formerly known as Jinder Mahal in AAA at their show. So Satnam Singh and and Jinder Mahal, I can't remember his new name. He's going to be Jinder Mahal. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're the AAA tag team champions.
Right.
Oh, and you could catch him at a show in Beaufort.
You know what? Jinder Mahal is somebody I wouldn't be surprised to see him
No.
at a Turnbuckle show. All of these free agents, if they live in the area, they have, QT's got the connection. So
yeah,
that's an exciting thing to see. Another one, we talk about them all the time, Southern Honor Wrestling. They had over 600. We challenged them. You and I challenged them that following taking, the month of July off, they really had to put up or shut up. And they did. And they ran a great shows, over 600. They got a lot of momentum. That was a hot crowd heading into Steel here. And I think Southern Honor has set themselves up for a good finish to 2024. And I don't think Southern Honor has just been consistent. And I don't necessarily think other promotions have done really well and have earned all the accolades that they have received. But I don't necessarily think it's because Southern Honor ever slipped. I think they've just kind of set a new standard and raised the bar in Georgia wrestling that other people have had to jump up to reach.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's I'm privy to a couple things. I know some talents who are coming in and things like that. I know they're gonna zig. Storytelling is it's like that's what Dylan's focus is. It's like telling the stories and sometimes look, we talked about it when Carly Bravo won. It's not that we didn't think Carly Bravo was talented enough to win the Rumble Jack, just didn't see it coming. Caught us off guard. I was like, hey, that's not what I saw coming, and there's some prizes coming. That's all I'm going to say. And, we talked about it last week, or are we going to come up with a segment called Overreaction Monday, right? Where, Southern Honor's back, baby. They're they're the top of the mountain. They did 609 and on. But yeah, I mean, Southern Honor, like I think sometimes it's not that we ever doubt them.
Right.
Did their continued success become their own detriment because it was the expectation, and being successful was kind of like, well, we expect you to be. So when somebody else is, it outshine. Like we would go, oh, look, it's a pretty neat toy. So, but Southern Honor is still, they're still right up there in the mix with being the top of the top.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I am very excited for the future of Southern Honor Wrestling. Here's another person. We just mentioned him. Hunter James. Hunter James pops up in SCA, gets a win. Is the current Jake the Snake champion. It looked like he had lost to Kyle Matthews. Listen, his feet were under the ropes. I said it to you that when it happened, hey, I think his feet were under the ropes. So people would say the decision was reversed or whatever. The fact is he hung with one of the best technical wrestlers in Georgia history, hung with him. And then goes from that one weekend, this beautiful technical match, to this absolute brawl, this war with Xavier, and just is showing that he can do it all. And Hunter James is on fire right now.
Look, how many times have I said to him, look, like him, don't like him, doesn't matter. You got to tip your cap to the kid. That on most nights when he gets in the ring, he's the best wrestler in the match. It's awesome when he gets in there with somebody like Kyle Matthews and they push him. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And I think that's what Hunter James needs.
I 1,000% agree.
He has so much confidence that it's good to see at multiple promotions he's getting thrown in with guys of different shapes, different sizes, different styles. Because I think, whether we like to admit it or not, Hunter James is someone you better get out and see him while you can.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, he's going to get on somebody's radar, and he is not going to be a Georgia wrestler anymore. Right. That's just a fact. That's just coming.
But the challenge is he's got to accept that challenge. He's got to push himself out beyond Georgia. And for wrestle guys, think about it. In that, you were talking about in that calendar week, he wrestled SCA, then he wrestled Kyle Matthews, he wrestled Zicky Dice the next night at Disruptor.
Yes.
And then a week later, it was SCA, and he was at then he wrestled Xavier in the dogfight. Like loop it. It's like mix it up, and and get better and better and better. But push yourself, And like I said, your goal is like at some point you can't wrestle the same guys. You got to keep wrestling these new guys, and he's doing that. So kudos.
He's wrestling in front of different crowds who are expecting different things, and that's going to push him as well. So kudos to Hunter James. And then finally, CT Keys, the current Southern Fried champ. He's the Coastal Empire champ. He's a key player at Southern Honor Wrestling. He is someone who is in the main event picture wherever he is. And now we know he's got the challenge of the Giant Jeter in front of him. But CT Keys has been on a roll this summer,
racking up titles. We talked about it. He beats Judias. He's the Southern Fried champion. First match down in the Coastal, defeats Randall Reno. He's the Coastal Empire champion. I mean, I don't know. You get much hotter than that. Walk into a promotion and capture the gold on the first show. And then, like you said, he's a mainstay player in the end game at Southern Honor. I think now it's becoming like, we're not bringing him in unless he's a player. Like he's just that. He's achieved that level. And like I said, we always talk about being a multiple promotion champion kind of shifts you around in the pecking order, and that's kind of what it's done. Especially the way he has pulled it off, pushes him right in there to the hot hand list.
Fans, we would love to hear your take. Who's your hot hand? Who's your Power 5? TappedOutPod@gmail.com. is where you can let us know what you think of our top five. Let us know your hot hand, folks. Uh, Speaking of not hot hands, somebody who's just hot. And you and I know we do this podcast. We share our opinions. We share just what we think about things. And apparently, we said something that offended Mr. Jack Jameson. And Nick, he kind of voiced his displeasure, especially with you over the weekend.
Listen, I preface this with I don't particularly like what he said, nor did my wife for that matter. I played it at the dinner table because I didn't know what he said. I just played it and I was like, okay. I admire his passion though. I really do. Look, all I said was that we discussed a card he was on and he lost. His team, it wasn't a singles match, it was a team. His team lost.
Yes.
I didn't berate the guy. I literally just said, hey, if you're going to talk a lot, win some matches. Now, he liked to point out that, hey, I'm undefeated at wrestling, the Monday Nightmare shows. All right. Well, maybe if you showed up there, you would know. And I'm like, well, I did come to one.
Yes.
And here's Jack Jameson, August 26th, the Monday Nightmare show in Athens. I'll be there. We'll come. Look, if you pick up a W, it's nothing personal. We just sit there and say, pick up some wins. We'll talk about you. If he wins, congratulations, good job. Pat it, shake his hand, whatever. Just win, baby. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Yes, no one has ever questioned his talent, his physique, his passion. I mean, when we talk about guys cutting promos, he's cut some pretty consistent promos. But like I said, we were there. His team did not get a win. But he's kind of put out the challenge, and so now, August the 26th, there, Southern Brewing in Athens. I'm doing everything I can to get there and sit there with you, and that's going to be fun to watch. And so we'll see. Maybe I can be the peacemaker between Jack Jameson and Nick McDaniel.
Maybe we'll see.
We'll see. Real quick before we go, I know you and Myron this week. We'll talk about the shows coming up this weekend. I just want to say I will be in Greenville, South Carolina, Saturday night for 3 Count Pro Wrestling there at Calvary First Baptist Church. I haven't been to a 3 Count show in a while, and it's not very far from my girlfriend's house. So that's where I'll be as Jacob Armachain, who just won that title, the 3 Count Pro 20. He won the Battle Royal and then cashed in his first title defense against the veteran Bryce Anthony. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you're in the Carolinas, we try to cover some Carolina wrestling when we can, but there's just so much Georgia wrestling that it's hard to get to the other stuff. Don't forget Patreon. You got to join us on Patreon. You got to go to YouTube. Again, tappedoutpod.com takes you right to the YouTube channel. You can become a member there. You can get all the shows early. You're going to get this amazing interview Nick's doing with QT Marshall today. Get it early. I'm excited to hear that myself. And then don't forget all the places you can get audio podcasts. And let us know. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Really kind of the video format is where a lot of podcasts are moving. But if you are an audio listener, Nick and I would love to hear, hey, please keep the audio feed going. Because we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to get our content to the most people.
Yeah, we've considered it. We've considered like, hey, are we just a YouTube show at this point? Patreon and YouTube only, not doing the audio podcast. Look, the numbers are what they are, and I can't lie and say that we're not massively a YouTube, show. I mean, did you know? And I wanted to put it out there. TappedOutPod@gmail. I do need the feedback on this for literally. You can actually become did you know you can become a free member at Patreon if you just so inclined. We would love to be paid get it early and all that kind of stuff. And you'll get an RSS link that you can add to Apple or Spotify or whatever, and you can still get it. Because I do put an audio format on there as well, because I do have Patreon members who say they just listen to the audio because they put their custom RSS link that you get on Patreon into Apple Music and stuff. And I tried it and it works. Yeah. So I was like, okay, it's pretty cool. I was not aware of that. So it just wouldn't go out to all these others. I could just kill the audio feed in that way, but I could still do it through Patreon or whatever. You could be a member. But yeah, it's something we've considered, just doing away with the audio and going straight to to video only. So tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know if if it's something that you're like, no. If we get overwhelming, but if not, it may be something we do. It just might.
Yeah, you just never know. And now I just saw that I guess on Apple Podcasts you can do memberships through there too. You can do paid subscriptions. So pretty interesting. The podcast game is always changing. But what doesn't change, fans, is that every week you are going to get some of the best wrestling content, some of the best analysis, some of the best opinions. That's my opinion. Here at the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network on the Tapped In Show and the Tapped Out Podcast. But for Nick McDaniel, this is Heath Mulligan, and we hope, whether it's in Georgia or the Carolinas, we hope to see you at the matches.